Hello, business leader, and welcome once again to our second episode of Fearless Business. As we said in our first episode, we're inviting you to a fearless journey. And this fearless space is for you and for your business as we discuss kingdom principles that will revolutionize the results that you're generating in your business. As I've mentioned before, I am one who's been inspired by the wealthy people, characters in the Bible. For example, Abraham, who was able to generate such value. He had 300 mercenary level fighting men in his household. What was he protecting? What wealth did this man have that he needed 300 fighting men? He was able to rout 4 kings who had just beaten 5 kings, and we're talking kings and their armies. His son Isaac, who was also so successful that he made such a great harvest that his neighbors were like, you're becoming too powerful for us. Please move away from us. Jacob later left home with nothing after cheating his brother out of his birthright. But then later on when he returns, he offers such a gift to his brother that already would make any one of us wealthy. Yet that was just a portion of his wealth. When you look at David, who out of his own personal wealth provided all the resources in gold, precious stones to just build the temple. And he said to Solomon, his son, well, feel free to add whatever you want, but I've provided everything. And then lastly, Solomon, who's known as the wisest and probably the wealthiest man in history, who made gold as common as silver in a nation where gold was not even being mined. These stories and more tell us that God is very keen on our well-being around wealth. Deuteronomy 8:18 says, remember the Lord your God, because it is He who gives you the power to make wealth. This is episode 2, and we had some amazing conversations in episode 1. If you haven't watched episode 1, which was really about kingdom versus worldly mindset, well, you need to take some time to talk about, to look at that, and you can go on our channel, Fearless Business. Today, we take this conversation forward, and we will be talking about mindset transformation. To lead us in this conversation and to discuss this with me is none other than the visionary of this Fearless Business conversation, but also he's the founder of the Mavuno Church. He is a business person. He has done many businesses. He's a wealthy man by many standards. Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Muriithi Wanjau.
Thank you. I like
Welcome,
the introduction,
Pastor.
by the way. That wealthy man part, I really like.
This is what we're about, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I loved it. Thank you.
Amazing.
Pastor CJ. Yeah.
Welcome, Pastor. And last time we talked about just the difference between the kingdom mindset and the worldly kingdom economics and the worldly economics.
Yeah.
And we
The
had
stuff
some
they taught us
interesting-
in the textbooks is not what's in
It's
the Bible.
not, yeah?
It's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But today we want to take this conversation further. We want to move it to the space where we're now talking about business, just that mindset transformation.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, personally, I'm a business person, and I run an organization, a consultancy, Opportunity Consulting Limited. I also, after you called me out, now lead a church, Mavuno Church Zion City in the Kikuyu area. Wow. And really, it's an amazing journey of just impacting lives.
Yeah.
But from our last conversation, we were saying it's impossible or difficult to impact lives if you are just touching their spiritual.
Yeah.
You need to be able to impact their wealth.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. I mean, what a great, I'd love to go to a church like yours that's led by a person who understands business.
Yeah.
And also it can help me grow, not just spiritually, but it can help me grow in every way. And that's the way it's meant to be. Huh? Discipleship is holistic. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And this brings us into our conversation for today. It takes a different way of thinking
Yeah.
to even begin to imagine that your pastor from the pulpit can talk to you about wealth and about finances. As we begin this conversation, what is mindset and how does mindset impact the way we do business, the way we make wealth?
Absolutely. And I mean, even just before I answer that, just to say, part of even what you've asked is part of mindset, you know, because we often think pastor is this direction, business is this direction.
Right there.
But one of the things I like telling people is my wife and I have run more than 10 businesses between us, successful businesses over the years. And so I don't believe in that division between your spiritual life and your ministry life. I think they're meant to be one and the same. No? And if you remember, if I can recap, last week we talked about some of the things that I learned from one of my mentors that really put us on this journey of having this Kingdom Business Show. And we talked about the fact that this man, Bishop Masika, went to a very impoverished area. And within 10 years, I mean, literally, because I say 10 years because I went there 10 years after.
Yeah.
And I actually met people who were earning a lot more than the people in my church, which I thought had rich people.
You know?
And I remember I took a bunch of our people, and some of them were like serious professionals, serious business people. And then we're interviewing this guy who can't even speak English.
Wow.
Didn't even finish primary school. But then to realize this guy was actually earning more every month than almost anybody in my retinue.
Wow.
And I was mind blown.
Wow.
And he was thinking different. He was actually a farmer.
Yeah.
He was doing experiments in his farm, like serious experiments. Actually, one of the things that I always laugh is one of the guys I went with was an agricultural economist from, I think it was JKU Art, one of our major leading schools that teaches people science and technology.
Yeah.
And he saw some of the experiments this guy was doing on his farm and asked him, how did you do this?
Wow.
Who taught you how to do this? Because even he had never known things like this could happen.
Amazing.
And the guy said, I just saw a problem and I asked myself, how do you solve it? So I solved it. So it's like the thinking was so different from what you'd expect.
Wow.
And so the question then becomes, how did Bishop Masika turn these impoverished people into wealthy people? And the three things, number one, mindset transformation. Number two, an empowered community. And then number three, the wealth infrastructure. So you're asking about the first one, the mindset transformation.
The mindset. Yeah.
You know, first of all, it's important to know what mindset is. Because mindset it really has to do with the mental attitudes that a person has. It's the way you see the world, your default settings.
Yeah.
There's a way that you think the world. Every one of us, by the way, has a mindset, regardless of who you are. We come into a situation and there's a way we believe the world works. So that's what the mindset is. And we're saying that most of us have broken mindsets. And the problem is our school systems hasn't fixed that, you know. Yeah. So we come into our spiritual life, we come into it, into our business lives, and then we struggle and wonder, why isn't the gospel working? Why does this Christianity change my success rate? Mm-hmm. And we think if I just pray more, something will shift.
Yeah.
But there's something broken. So that's why it's so important. That's one of the things I realized. That's why Bishop Masika couldn't start by where most NGOs start by saying, let's create, what business can these people do? What well can we dig for them? Yeah. How do we solve their problems? Yeah. He was like, no, you don't need to solve people's problems. Teach them to think differently. They can solve their own problems.
That is so interesting, Pastor Yaman. And you know, this sounds interesting because that's so mind-blowing and mind-shifting, because I go to my shags, my upcountry village, and I look around, and the first thing I want to do is I got a few things I can show you guys.
I can show you guys a few things. But the problem when you show people things, they become dependent. You create a dependency.
That's right.
So they'll always need you to run the things you give them, because that's not their solution. But if you teach them different thinking, they can create the solutions for themselves.
Now, I'm going to digress a bit, because I think this begins to give meaning to these conversations we're having around why we were left such good railways.
But, and then we run them down.
Yeah.
And then we build another 60 years later, we build Chinese ones now.
Exactly.
But I don't know if we're guaranteed that we're going to run them any better. You see, because when somebody gives you a solution from the outside, as opposed to help you create solutions, then the solution will always depend on the outsider, you know, because it's not something you've owned. You know, the standards you've owned are not. So you can train them, but you haven't changed the mindset.
Wow.
And so a lot of NGOs go into places, you find that this place or governments or global bodies, they do, I mean, how many trillions of dollars has Africa received in aid since the 60s? That aid has not, there's hardly, in fact, I can't think of a single place you go to where you find people have become fabulously wealthy because the aid was directed at them. We've dug wells, they've done orphanages, we've done everything.
Yeah.
But a place you can say this whole community has been transformed because of aid doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
And the reason is because aid actually, many times, it solves the surface problem, but then it creates a much bigger, deeper problem.
And then, of course,
and that was what Bishop Masika found among his people. He found that they had become dependent on government aid. Every year, there'd be a drought. And every time there's a drought, these people would say, naomba serikali, which in Kenyan language just means, let the government come and help me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if the government didn't step in on time with relief food, people would die. Wow. So part of his mindset transformation was something he called OMO, Operation Molio Out. And Molio in their language means aid. Somebody help me.
Yeah.
And so he actually came up with this operation as part of their mindset transformation, that we need to be people who don't depend on other people to help us.
You know, as you talk about aid, most recently as a continent, we've become very surprised that a certain aid does not mean aid.
Let me tell you, most
never
gifts from
just free.
abroad are never free, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll say this with due respect, I hope I don't offend anybody in saying this, but even some of the jobs that have been withdrawn now, because our big brothers have pulled out the funding taps, and people are desolate because I no longer have my well-paying job. Some of the best-paying jobs in our continent were to help the poor.
Yeah.
There's an irony there.
Yeah.
Because those poor have never been helped.
Yeah.
And those jobs have always been there.
Yeah.
And those jobs, they don't actually change the world. Yeah. I remember one of my friends who joined I'll have to say it, a UN agency. And they joined it because they were so passionate about the poor.
Yes.
And about helping children. They joined this agency and they said millions of dollars later, I'm sure so disillusioned, because they'd have at the end of the year, they'd have to go on retreats to finish the budget, because if you don't finish your budget for that year, you will get money
tomorrow you get less, next time you get
so
less.
they go to Seychelles with their whole family to finish the budget so the next year's project can be funded. And she was woke enough or smart enough to say, but this isn't right.
Yeah.
You know, so eventually she quit, which most people thought she was crazy doing.
Yeah.
You know? So I think what we're saying is we need to teach people to think different. The things that created the problem in the first place cannot be the things that solve the problem.
Wow.
The thinking that got us in the hole cannot be the thinking that gets us out of the hole.
Wow.
So Africa, or even Christians, we have to start thinking different. And that's where mindset comes in.
Yeah.
If I don't teach people how to think different, giving them money will actually not help them.
Yeah.
It'll actually put them in a bigger hole. And that's why Bishop Masika focused with that. So now let's talk about mindsets. Huh?
Yeah.
Because I feel like we operate under some very crazy mindsets. All of us. We come from crazy mindsets.
Please unpack this for us, because if it can free us from the drama.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, you're running your business or you're running your home, but we come, so I'll give you an example. One of the mindsets that's prevalent today is a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
You come in with a scarcity mentality. Basically, the scarcity mentality is that belief that the world is governed by scarcity, that there's never enough to go around. Let me tell you, when you think that, and you know, we grew up, even for us as African kids, if you remember when you're taught to do exams where you're hiding like this, huh? So it's like if my neighbor gets an answer from me, or if somebody gets an answer from me and they'll be better than me.
Yeah.
And it goes into the world where I almost feel threatened by your success.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when I see somebody in my class who succeeded more than me, I feel there's something wrong with me. So the scarcity mentality, when I have it, I will never have enough. And you look at it, you look at some of our politicians who have hoarded and stolen, but it's like they keep any opportunity they keep. Why is that? Because there's that mentality of I'll never have enough. You just have to keep hoarding and hoarding. And we get there as people. You find a person never home, sacrificed their children's growing up years because they were busy making money. But even when the wealth came, they still wouldn't be home with the kids. Why? Because it's never enough. Yeah. We don't know how to say enough is enough. You know? Yeah. When you have a scarcity mentality, you're always comparing yourself with others. You're never satisfied. As long as somebody else is doing well, you always feel I have to do as well as them.
Oh,
I have
and
to be
that
as
trap
rich
is
as them.
real.
I have
Oh,
to
that
drive the
trap is
car they're
real.
driving. You know, that's a scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
You become even afraid to rest. I don't know if you know people can't even take leave from work. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like somebody might take my job because there's always that sense of you don't even want to help somebody because if you help them, they might do better than you.
I've been in spaces like
You
that.
have, huh?
Yeah.
So think about it then. You have a business, God is blessing you, but with a scarcity mentality, what do you do with the blessing? You just hoard it.
Yeah.
You really can't use it to become a kingdom helper of others.
That is so interesting.
So the first thing I have to do for you is help you get rid of this mentality because it's going to keep you poor. You can actually have wealth in terms of riches, but you're poor up here.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the things, mindset transformation is I want you to be rich up here, not just in the pocket.
Somebody says one great test for scarcity mentality is spread food for people to eat and make it self-service. Then see, the ones who have scarcity mentality are there fast, trying to get as much of everything they can.
As much as I can. And it's always like, then I eat as much as I can't even leave anything because it's like, man, it might not be there. There's always that sense of there'll not be enough. And then very closely related is poverty mentality.
Yeah, wow.
Poverty mentality is that belief that the world is against me, that people like us don't succeed.
Wow.
So it's almost, you come from a village where people don't succeed, or I come from a people where things are hard. People like me don't succeed. So it's almost like you expect the worst in every interaction. So let me give you an example. Like I should give an example. Scarcity mentality, a great example would be somebody like the Israelites when they were given manna by God, and they were told, don't collect on the Sabbath because I'll always provide. But what happened on the Sabbath?
Oh, they collect.
That's when guys collected
That's
double.
exactly what I would have done.
And triple. Because it's like,
we don't know. We don't know.
How do I know you'll be there on Monday? Because
yeah.
that sense of, I don't know, it's a scarcity mentality. But poverty mentality, it's a little different. It's related because it's that sense where you're always like, I need help. Like I can't, like I can't succeed unless I'm helped. Wow. It's so prevalent in our continent. We lack agency. Poverty mentality is that thing where you see the road in your estate is got potholes and you just drive on it. You don't actually think we can rally
come
around.
on, Pastor M. You're
we
becoming
can rally
personal
neighbors,
now.
We can actually, everybody put in something small and we fix this road. Because we don't have that mentality, we can change our reality.
But someone's got a budget for it.
That's the thing, somebody will help us.
Yeah.
And so you suffer.
Wow.
You stay there 10 years suffering. Your cars are always getting changes their shocks. You're always splashed by rain because you don't feel like you have the agency. Poverty mentality robs you of agency.
Wow.
And many Africans, we lack agency. You're always thinking it's someone else. The UN needs to do more. The government needs to do more. The aid agencies need to do more. It's never I.
That sounds like a moment here. We just need to have an altar call, finish this session, then we can come back when we've recovered.
I remember
because that's so close home.
When I was younger, I took a group, I was a young pastor. I took a group of college students, 10 Kenyan college students and 10 American college students, and I was in charge of doing a team building with them for a week, and then 3 weeks we went to do mission together in Tanzania. It's a phenomenal experience.
Wow.
But the most shocking thing was that first week when I was doing team building. We went to those things that you guys were so good at. Those things where you have a big wall and then you climb. You're supposed to be like every team climb this wall, and it looks impossible. But if you think hard enough, you'll solve it. And then they have those spider web things where people are supposed to cross. Those things.
Yes.
And I remember every time the Kenyans would be like, "This is impossible. Like how is someone supposed to do this?"
Yeah.
Like the Americans immediately they were told to do it. And these were college students. You'd already see them strategizing. Like, okay, let's try this. And somebody would come up with solution until they solved it. And that's when I said, my God, we are different from these people.
Wow.
I think our education system or our parenting has let us down. We don't think solution. Now it's changing, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I really feel like there's an edge that some people have because for them, every problem is you see when they see somebody without a community without shoes, we think, my God, how poor these people are.
Yeah.
They think, wow, what an opportunity. I can sell shoes. I can create cheap shoes for people. So it's like we have or when we see trash, for us, we hold our nose. For them, they're thinking somebody can create a solution here to create energy from this trash.
We hold our nose, look the other way, and pass.
You know?
what you're saying, Pastor M, goes deeper than just the surface.
Absolutely.
What I'm hearing you say is some of the mindsets I'm dealing with right now are generational.
They are generational.
They've come down
Absolutely.
our ancestry.
Yeah.
And if we don't put a stop to it,
Yeah.
we're going to be in trouble. And we're setting up our generations to come.
And a poverty mentality will always make us feel it's because we're poor. We always feel we can't compete with people from other continents. There's something, it's rigged against us. Reality is rigged against us. So we look down on ourselves.
And that's so interesting because then I enter the ring and I look at my situation and in my mind, I've already lost.
There it is.
And so even in my putting of effort, this is profound.
I mean it's a really ridiculous one. Huh? If you want to get high-class Kenyans, okay, and again, please don't let me offend you.
We refuse offense.
To get high-class Kenyans to come to your school and you're starting a school, what do? Get a white headmaster.
Oh, come on.
Because what do Kenyans think? It's like if there's a white person who lives here or who works here, it must be a good place.
Wow.
Dude, it's like we are brainwashed, And I feel like it's just it's a gimmick. We don't understand how we've put ourselves down over the years because of this poverty.
For some of us, it's not just a mindset. We moved into action. We've hired the white person.
We hired them.
We've moved on.
So that other Africans can come and pay money because they believe. So I mean, and I say that with all due respect.
And there even seems to be a limit of how much you can bill when
with a black person as your headmaster. So I feel like that is a dangerous place to be when we have that poverty mentality. If you think about in the book of Judges where Gideon is called by an angel, God is with you, mighty warrior.
Yeah.
And he says, dude, I'm from the poorest tribe, the poorest family in the poorest clan, in the poorest tribe. It's like you just look down on yourself.
It takes it even further. He says, for crying out loud, I'm threshing
in a wine press. So it's like he so looks down on himself. And then later when you read that God has given him marching orders and he goes, you realize he had servants.
Yeah.
He had, they had bulls to sacrifice. His father was like the leader of the community.
Oh my.
But in his mind, when you hear him, you'd think he's like from the very, very, so he looks down on himself. And that's what a poverty mentality does. You look down on yourself.
In our last episode, you talked about having so much wealth as a continent.
Yeah.
And
but
the
we
saddest
look down
bit,
on ourselves.
Everyone else sees it.
Exactly.
And we seem not to see it.
We are waiting for visas to immigrate to other green pastures.
Yeah.
Not understanding everybody on that side is coming here because they can see the green pastures are actually here. Huh? So rather than solving our problems, we are running away to places where people have solved problems. So, and I'm not trying to beat us down, by the way. I'm just trying to say this is generational. These are some of the reasons why we must change our mindset.
Yeah.
When we begin to realize these things, then we can be freed of them. When we're ignorant, we can't. So that's another mindset that we need. So there's a scarcity, there's poverty. Another one is consumer mindset.
Tell us about this
consumer mindset. It's so prevalent. Huh? Consumer mentality comes from the idea that a person's well-being and happiness depend on them amassing consumer goods and experiences. It's that whole social media thing of just, FOMO. You just see people doing things and it's like, man, this is how life is meant to live.
But Pastor M, I've worked for this money.
Uh-huh.
I work for Organization X. They pay me good money.
Yes.
Surely.
So
the best I can do
is
enjoy
do what I see other people
the
doing,
fruit of my labor.
Now the problem is when we do that, we become consumers. And basically, and I've shared this story before, how I went to Germany and how I found that they don't, I remember this wealthy home, and they say to us, the reason we don't have a PlayStation, the reason we don't have TV here, is because in our sector of society, in our level of society in Germany, we teach our kids to be producers, not consumers.
Oh, come on.
And they say those PlayStations and things that you're asking about, we teach our kids to create them so that the poor kids can actually buy them.
Guys at home, the TV, I'm coming home, the TV is going away. Anyway.
So our kids have been taught to consume. Whereas in other countries, you're teaching your kids to solve problems. You're teaching them to to save, to start a lemonade stand when they're very small, to sell to their neighbors, to cut their neighbor's grass, ask them for something in return. Like you're teaching your kids to think entrepreneurial. I can solve problems for myself.
And you know,
but here, it's almost like I want to, because I don't want my kids to ever feel anything I felt.
wow.
So what are we doing? We supply everything. You know, anything they ask for, you supply.
At a moment's notice.
At a moment's notice.
Yeah.
So we create unknowingly, we've created the country that has the least productivity also has the highest consumption.
Oh wow!
We don't even understand delayed gratification, that I can actually save. In fact, the crazy thing about us, we save to consume. So even when you teach guys, start savings. Guys, save, boom, buy a nice car.
There are some people,
save, boom, buy nice cakes. Buy nice shoes.
There's some people that either need to rethink their piggy banks,
and they don't know why they're saving. I mean, actually, most people are shocked when I say you bought shoes with your savings. They're like, but what were they for?
Yeah.
Like you don't even understand
buy them up front.
That you can actually create wealth that creates wealth in the future.
Wait a minute, Pastor M, because what you're talking about here is national security conversation.
These are serious issues, huh?
Because when we talk about a nation being a consumer nation.
Yeah. We are consumer nations. So, I mean, we build, like, for instance, I'll use my own country. We build a phenomenal railway.
Yeah.
Funded by China I mean, that's supposed to cut across our whole country.
Yeah.
Right now, we are borrowing so that we can take it all the way to Uganda. Amazing. The crazy thing, though, is we didn't do the homework of first building the industries that will export on that railway. So what are we doing? We're using the railway to bring imported cheap Chinese goods in
faster.
And then the trucks coming out are empty.
Completely.
Because we're not manufacturing. So again, even our development expenditure is consumer-based. It's about how do we get cheap goods to the whole country. So it's a national emergency. You're absolutely right. But it's reflected even in the households.
Wow.
You know, you find the poorest people in this country have a smartphone. And it's not, and I know smartphones are essential. I know they're good for business. But it's just that thing about we don't understand delayed gratification. That's a consumer.
And is it for business to sell or is it for business to buy?
There you go.
Are you the one providing what is being bought on smartphone, or are you the one
who's actually supplying the solutions? And when we have these kids, you read about them from JKUAT and other universities who produce these. The guy starts creating electricity or something. We don't support them. We almost look down on them. It's like a quirk. You just see it on a newspaper or something, and you're like, oh, how cool. But we don't even fund that or support that. And so we'll always consume stuff from the outside.
And this completely shifts my mindset, because one of the arguments we have is that, but the quality, and yet we've not taken time.
But those guys built the quality just like us.
Exactly. Or the other conversation we have is, but it's too expensive. For example, right now, buy Kenya, build Kenya is so much more expensive in many situations.
It is, but we don't understand it's actually funding other countries and destroying our own economies when we don't do that.
Wow.
You know? So I feel like this is something, even businesses, we prefer businesses that are trade businesses. I want to go to Guangzhou and collect things and come and sell them for cheap. Make my markup. That's an easy business to do. I don't want to manufacture. I don't want to create real solutions for my people. I want to just pass on. So our biggest businesses here, middle-class businesses, SMEs, we're actually traders. Of other people's goods. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I think it's actually good to run a business. A trade business is better than no business. But what if you could actually add value? What if we could actually manufacture value? So we need to change our consumer mentality. Otherwise, it'll destroy us. Are you beginning to understand what I mean by mentality?
I am so blown away.
If we just help
by
people
this.
start creating wealth, but we don't teach them to change their mindset, then we'll actually leave our continent more and more in debt. You know?
Wow. I don't know if you're hearing what I'm hearing. I don't know if you're getting challenged to begin to be a value creator from within the continent, not outside.
Can I throw one more?
Yeah, sure.
Instant gratification mentality.
There's still another one.
And it's kind of similar to the consumer one, but this one is the one where you feel like I must get rich and I must get rich
now.
You know, I mean, for me, to be honest, my ambition in life was by 30, I'll be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And I was like, first of all, I'll be the first millionaire in my class. That was my ambition.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you look at me, I was a very admired, everybody knew I could do it. Huh?
Yeah.
But now I look back at that and I'm like, how short-sighted we are. And it's because we've read all these stories about Bill Gates and about all these other guys who became wealthy. So all of us are focusing on that one.
Can I share mine
person.
with you?
Yeah.
And I was going to come out of high school, and in my early 20s, before I got into university, I was going to be those guys that drive to university, because I was going to be one of the directors in my father's company, which was still operating at the time.
I love it.
And
drive a car
living the life
in your early 20s. I mean, it sounds exciting. And there's not. And again, somebody can wonder, why are you criticizing that? I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying we haven't learned that real wealth is built long-term and generationally. So that I'm not thinking about my consuming today is robbing my descendants of the leg up they need.
Wow.
So my kids went to an Asian school here in this country. And the crazy thing is, I realize most of the people who are in their class were third generation wealthy. As in, their grandfathers made the wealth, their fathers increased it, and mothers, and now they were the ones being taught. So here your kids are, and you're the guy who's just gotten that job now, you're splashing, you're taking them to Diani for holidays. By the way, even this third generation guy is not even running at the same. You realize they're actually a lot more thrifty than we with our first generation money. Huh?
So true.
But these guys now are being trained to run global enterprises.
Oh, come on.
You see, for us, it's like the father, even if he started a successful business, first of all, these kids have been taught to be such consumers. They're being taught, go to Manchester, go to Sijui, Oxford, go wherever, and never come back. Because that's what we teach our kids, like just go. So this father has hustled, built that business in Kikomba or wherever it is, selling whatever it is. But his kids have no interest in taking this thing to the next level. All they want is just to consume from their parents' business. And if their parents die because they were never, ever taught to be appreciated, they'll just basically sell it off and continue with their nice careers.
Wow.
So we are one generation wonders.
Wow. Wow.
You can never compete with people who think long-term. The most successful cultures in this world are long-term thinkers.
And that is at family level, that is at national level, that is at continental level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, we have to change mindset. This is why this conversation we're talking about mindset is not theory. We have to, even our business, you need to ask yourself, what's the plan for this business? How are your children going to benefit from it? And how are you building the systems to make sure that happens? How is the wealth going to increase in a sustainable way? Because the problem is, if I get to, I mean, I've seen those guys who are 30, yes, you're a millionaire. But again, money goes to your head. You don't have the maturity to manage it. You're not thinking long term. So what are you doing? You're in Dubai taking pictures of hashtag, blessed. You're all over the world doing all these things. Because you're living like those people, not understanding the people you're seeing, who you're copying, who are doing those things, are fourth, fifth generation
wealth.
And the wealth they're going with on holiday with you is not being created from a salary.
No.
It's coming from a trust, and it's coming from passive income that is generational. So how do we change that mentality?
And I think that is so interesting. So we have scarcity mentality. Poverty mentality,
absolutely,
consumer mentality, and then instant gratification mentality.
These are all ways that our minds have been messed up. There's a hustler mentality in this country where it's like, if I work hard at 10 things, something will make it. But it's almost like frantically chasing money. That's another mentality we have. What we're saying is all these mentalities must go. Magical thinking mentality is another one. That thinking of, things are going to turn around one day. It's like you're not doing anything different. You're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over and hope for a different result. That's magic. I call that magical thinking. And for some Christians, magical thinking is just, if I pray hard enough, something will change. So all those mentalities keep us poor. They conspire to keep us poor.
I see expressions of this, I dare confess, in my life, around me, with people around me.
We're all guilty of this.
I see expressions of this.
It happened to us. These things actually, we found them operating. When Bishop Masika went to try and help his people to get out of this poverty, he realized when he told them, let's dig some water pans, so that we don't always wait for rain. We can store the water. And the first thing they said is, we need to consult the witch doctor. It's like, we don't know if there's any, to touch the earth, we need to actually have a ritual. The witch doctors have to come and approve. And the guy realized this thing you can never change. If you dig water pans for them, they will not use them. This is why people say there was even a fish freezing unit that was built in Lake Turkana years ago. I think it was by the Danish or one of those governments. Ultra modern fish freezing processing thing that was built by a Nordic country that they're leaders in that industry. And they were like, here's an amazing lake full of fish. Let's build a factory for these guys. That thing just rotted with all its equipment. And it was cult, and people came and took out things. So you ask why? It's because the mentality was not shifted. Unless the mentality is shifted, giving people things, giving them opportunities doesn't help them.
Wow. Is there hope? Because for me, I'm like, our goose is cooked.
It's not cooked, huh? And I think that's what I learned from Bishop Masika, because what I learned from him is you can teach wisdom. The first place, before we talk about let's create business structures, let's teach people kingdom wisdom. And Proverbs chapter 3, verse 3-5 says, blessed are those who find wisdom, who gain understanding. That's what this show is about, by the way. It says, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. Wisdom is more profitable than money. You'd rather give your children wisdom than give them money. That's what Solomon is saying. Huh? And you know, it's very interesting because money, I tell people, why wisdom? Why do I need to give you wisdom? Why do we need to give you wisdom? Number one, money flows towards wisdom. You find this thing to happen. Even if you pay everybody the same amount of money in Kenya today, and everybody is given the same amount, within another 3 months, the rich will actually have gotten poor from that. That money will have flowed towards the ones who already have it and left the pockets of the ones who didn't have it. So money always flows towards wisdom. So the first thing you have to understand is before you get money, get wisdom. And that's why we have to do mindset transformation. And then again, when you have wisdom, your pursuing money will not destroy you. Because there are many people who've pursued wisdom, they've broken their marriages, broken their families. When you pursue wisdom, wisdom is paramount. When you pursue money, wisdom is paramount. Pursue wisdom. And that's why we have what we call the Kingdom Business School. The Fearless Business School. The Fearless Business School is an initiative that we've started. Actually, you're a big part of that. And maybe you should actually be the one to end this episode. Tell us a bit about that, because I feel like it's such an important part of this whole transformation that God is leading us into.
I think what's so amazing about the Fearless Business School is to begin to unpack the conversations between business people and just gaining the wisdom. We're looking at the biblical principles. What do those actually look like? This should be a flagship of that.
So this is a part of the Fearless
Business School. The other thing is bringing people into a space where they can gain new knowledge. I think one of the greatest lessons of my journey as a believer and as a leader has been just how much people assume that people know. And sometimes even ourselves. And we find ourselves in difficult situations and we're like, I should know about this. But we don't know. But where do we get this information?
So this school is a place for that to happen.
Exactly.
So, and you've already said it's just like any school. You have courses that you're offering.
We have courses that we are offering. Among them is the the Faith-Driven Entrepreneur, which is an 8-week program. And the 8-week program is the foundational course. And this is where we just almost like a jump start of the mindset shift. Because then you begin to hear conversations about how your business is not just for profit, but your business is mission as well. The people working for you are disciples of Christ. The people working for you are change agents for their societies.
You know what I like about that course?
It
was written by a dollar billionaire.
Like
this guy, like I don't know how many dollar billionaires you know. Like this course was actually designed by a dollar billionaire who's a Christian and who felt led by God to create a course to teach people how to create wealth in a godly way. And it's a whole 8-week course. And actually we've graduated already, I think the first cohort
We have graduated the first cohort, and in just a few days we'll be starting the recruitment for the second cohort.
Oh wow!
So we already have the facilitators in place.
Okay.
So it's now just getting the.
So if someone wants to sign up, they can actually sign up.
Actually sign up.
Yeah.
So we'll be sharing the details. We'll be sharing the details at the bottom of the screen. So click on that. Reach out to us. We'll share the contact information as well, and let us know, and we'll plug you in.
You know, I'm excited about it, and it's going to be our flagship course. It's like our main foundational course.
Yeah.
But I know in the Kingdom Business School, there'll be other courses we're going to be offering as well.
Yes.
And what we want to challenge people is sign up.
Absolutely.
Like the first one, first of all, we've made the bar very low.
Yes.
Because it's quite easy to engage.
Yeah.
But we want to offer other courses that are going to be just foundational courses that help you think differently.
Absolutely.
And the funny thing is, most people think they know. You know, there's certain things in life people think they know about. Money, marriage, parenting. Yeah. You come into it thinking, but everyone knows how to do this.
And even adulting.
But let me tell you, if you don't have mentors to help you restructure your thinking about those things, you will make the mistakes that other people before you made.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things I would really encourage people is let's get wisdom as a church. This year, what if every single one of us could sign up for this course? This foundational course. What if every single one of us could actually even begin to restructure how we think? Whether you're in business as a business owner, or whether you're employed you're a business entrepreneur, as we said.
Yes.
What if every single one of us could say, I'm going to invest 8 weeks of my time to do this? The Bible says invest. You're investing already, chasing after money. Why not take a moment and chase wisdom?
Yeah. And it's transformational. And that's why we have this show. In a short while, I'll be asking Pastor M to just conclude for us in prayer. But you, business owner, sitting out there looking at us and listening to this conversation, what is going to be your point of action?
Yeah.
We've challenged you, and now it's on to you. We are having this fearless business conversation so that we can challenge you to be fearless as you run your fearless business.
Yep.
Next week we'll be having conversations around building that transformed community, being part of a community that is aligned and focused and committed towards this agenda of kingdom-driven businesses. To conclude, Pastor M, please pray for us.
Oh man, let's pray. Yeah, Lord, I just want to thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for every single person who's listening intently to this. Lord, I believe that there's transformation. I believe already our minds are being transformed as we listen to your word. I thank you for the people who are part of the Mavuno family, because many of you have even had this information before. So this is just coming to affirm what you've already learned in the past. But now it's time for action. And so I pray that, Lord, this seed that has been planted, that, Lord, the enemy would not be able to steal it. Your word talks about how birds came and stole the word after it was preached. I pray that would not be the case for anyone who's listened to this. I pray that, Lord, would not have hard hearts where the seed would not take root. I pray that, Lord, weeds and what your word calls the worries of this world, the deceitfulness of wealth, would not steal from us the information we've received. I pray that, Lord, instead it would bear fruit 100-fold, 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. And so I just want to pray for every kingdom entrepreneur, every intrapreneur who's listening to this. And I pray that, Lord, as we walk into this week, help us to seek wisdom, not just worldly wisdom, not just wisdom from all those sources, but, Lord, to be willing to invest in seeking wisdom from your word. And I pray that as we do so, that you would create a whole community here that thinks differently. Lord, free from poverty thinking, scarcity thinking, consumer thinking, all these things that keep us in slavery. That, Lord, indeed, in this season, we would see a generation arise whose economy would not be determined by the economy of the world, that would just have its own economy that changes the world for you. And so I speak a blessing over you, God's people, as you go into this week, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Well, see you, fearless business leader, at our next Fearless Business Conversations.